All right. So I call the February 25th, 2021 Toxics Board meeting to order.
Should one of us second that?
No. So then we have the approving of the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda as it is.
All
All in
in
favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Did somebody second
Aye.
it?
I second that motion.
Okay, great. Why don't I actually have the agenda right there? Let me get over here. So update. There's so much. Like, this has been a long year. It's been a year since we met.
Yeah.
So it's been a weird year with the program. We have lost some businesses. It's not surprising. We've lost actually the main ones that I've found out about at this juncture are actually some larger ones, like the flake board plant over on Danabo and stuff like that. So once we get to the fee discussion, you'll see that it has had an impact. We also have had quite a few businesses have seen lower FTE for the year. Between shutdowns and just lower production, they lowered their workforce. It's been I think for all of us, it's been a weird year. For the program, it's been a weird year just because communication has then also slowed down dramatically. So it's just taken a little bit more. I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot more legwork communicating with businesses this year as people have been remote and just slower to respond. But FTE came in well this year. We actually had some people more on top of things than the last couple years, which has been handy. Still doing outreach to businesses, but that did take a pause during a good portion of the year because didn't really want to go on site to places. Both they didn't want me there, and so just trying to be responsible with that with the pandemic. Let's see here.
Do we want to go around and do introductions since it's been such a long time?
Sure, that's a great idea.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm Don Egan, industry and board chair.
And my name is Crystal Abrams, and I'm a citizen advocate, and I'm a member at large, I believe.
Evan Schenken, citizen advocate.
Nicole Patterson, environmental advocate, I think. I don't know the difference between citizen and environmental, but citizen environmental advocate.
Sure.
James Lenhart, program manager. For the city of Eugene. Your technical title is right to know advocate. It's most people refer to you as an environmental advocate. So we know what you are. Okay, here's the agenda. I just want to be able to have that up over here too. Let me think if there's any other major things right now. The big work right now has been for a good portion of the year was trying to get Crystal, reappointed and to fill out the rest of the board. So on the agenda, as I sent it out to you, the two things that we're going to talk about is board recruitment and then of course the budget and fee, because we're back in that again. It's been a year, so we get to discuss that again. I know there's a lot more we can talk about, but I know I am feeling the crunch on the budget fee work plan because we're under tight timelines on that. And the city council did want us to discuss board recruitment. So that's why that's on the agenda. So if you're all okay with just kind of pausing any other major program updates so we can jump into to our agenda items, that would be greatly appreciated. Sound good? Okay. So budget, fee, and work plan. So for this this next year, or this year, I guess, if you let's pull up the budget information at this point. That's the FY22 program budget. Oh, there's a typo on it of FY21, but it is the 22 budget. Sure. Yeah. So there's not a lot of change overall in the budget from the previous year. You can see that especially by looking at the FY21 approved budget, the grayed out column, that what was approved last year, we did 132,866 and change. If you look at 90% staffing, if you look at the 90% staffing this year, it's a pretty small change. It's 133,619 and change. So very little change year over year, except for the one big thing is that at this point, I do not have the extra $4,000 in the budget that we had appropriated for potential system updates, which we were not able to do this year with everything that happened, but it provided us at the same time some cushion in that we lost businesses that also then didn't pay their bill. So there's some situations like that. But that means our budget at the 90% staffing is basically the same as the previous year if we keep with that. Are there any questions on the items as they stand right now?
Yeah, so it on my version, it's got 100% staffing highlighted. Are you planning to move to 100% staffing or?
No, that was there to more than anything to call out. This is what the numbers are at their 100%, because I just wanted everybody to fully see that. And it's mainly because this is pulled off of my data entry, and it makes sure that I entered in the right place.
Okay.
Because it all auto calculates all over here. So no, that's because of my data entry, and so most of those items are what I'm handed. So we don't really have a whole lot of play with that, and that's always a challenge. The biggest thing is, of course, the staffing.
So there is no wiggle room to get that 4,000 back?
I mean, we can do it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel bad taking it out of your salary because that's essentially what we're discussing.
No,
But
I mean,
okay.
It doesn't affect me. So that 4,000 is strictly for, but we're basically adding money in to our budget to be able to say if we want to be able to do modifications to our system, then here's the money that we can use to pay ISD. We're in the interesting spot that the fire department has rolled out the new system that they contracted using, and mind you, the rollout slowed way down because of COVID. So my expectation was in the fall to be able to start conversations around, okay, how does it work with maybe toxics getting into this and everything, and that those talks haven't been able to happen because everything slowed down because of what happened, and it was a big lift changing over in the middle of the early stages of this pandemic. So those conversations are still going to happen. I just have to get them scheduled with Dave, our analyst that is handling that. The only thing that my compensation, my pay doesn't change. The only thing that changes is how much the program wants to take on, and that's the 100 to 80% staffing. If you drop the amount of staffing, then the general fund has to pick it up, and that has to have conversation. So if you guys are saying we want to reduce the amount of staff time, then I have to go up the chain and say, this is what the board's asking for. And because it has to be by the charter, it has to be negotiated.
So how much time do we have to work on the budget? When do you need this approved by?
As soon as humanly possible.
So like last week.
So, I mean, because the challenge is always the city council is backlogged always, and even worse now. And so the sooner we get it to them, the sooner they approve it, so that we meet our timelines, so we can get out invoices by April 1. So that's our challenge. Evan?
Oh yeah, James, it sounded like from the last some of our discussions, you had found a number of different businesses that sort of had been overlooked before, and it seemed like part of that your ability to be able to identify those businesses was because of having staffing time and which would in overall reduce the costs for businesses, because you're identifying businesses and we're getting into a more like we're able to really identify who's in the program and who isn't because of the map, and we got that big piece sorted. So I'm just thinking, in terms of long run and the vaccination schedule, we're likely to pick up in this fiscal year, and that could be an argument for having a full-time staffing, so that as business picks back up, it'll reduce the rates for everybody. Otherwise, you're going to be off doing other things, and the program fees might go up for everybody. So anyway, that's just a few thoughts.
So
can you remind us what the 10% is for?
So the 10% is for a few things, and one of the big things is meetings. If I have our internal staff meetings or anything like that that's fire department related, not toxics itself related, the fire department pays for that. So that's the lion's share of that 10%. Because if you think about it, it's 4 hours a week. And so that, and if they need help on any other small projects. So
do you think that's something that you could cut or no?
I know that previously the fire marshal has been quite adamant. She wants that 10% still, to give that room, which I understand, and and it would make it very difficult if we increase that. And I don't think it will actually change things that much on the program end in reality. It's because even I'm constantly doing the research and combing through, because I always want to capture the businesses I can. It mainly comes down to the business's responsiveness. So that's what takes the extended time frame, not necessarily labor time, because it's reach out, wait, swing by, leave a message, those types of things. So I don't think that increasing at this juncture, the staffing will make a huge difference. One concept would be potentially down the road, if we want to look at something like if there's any internships that would be interested in the program. That may help if we set up some specific projects to be able to offload some of that on an intern that comes through the university or something like that. That's a whole nother thing that has to be developed, but that would be a potential to gain some labor for some of these types of things that especially more project related.
And also I know that there's been discussions a number of years ago about, the unpaid internship being a problem. And I'm wondering if there's any way that we can have one of the line items be used for, you know, for the internship, you know, whatever fee or whatever pay that we could give some, you know, graduate student or whoever to do some work so that they could get.
Yeah, I mean, and also like, well, it's only $1,000, but I wonder if the training and related travel, if that line item, I mean, given the current situation, if some of that could be moved.
One of the beauties of this program is that we actually have a little more flexibility than some of the others. So ultimately it's, are we keeping inside our bucket? And so as long as we keep in, you know, this is our total amount, we need to keep under that. That's the main thing. So there's some room to kind of move things around after things, after we're in the year. So, and so there's some areas like that are potential. The key for something like that is we'll have to develop the program. So it'd be more of probably this year, develop how that would work, you know, get the approvals necessary. And then most likely next year, look at something like that in because we'd also have to have specific projects developed for that prior to initiating it. Yeah, Crystal.
I just had one quick question looking at the budget under office supplies and furniture, the $520 line item. Does that transfer over to things that you can use in your personal home office, or is that specifically at your other office?
That's really down there at the main office.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I haven't really brought anything here because I haven't needed to. Because I have a pretty good setup at my home. I actually, in some ways, have a better setup at my home. So,
Right.
but I mean, but there are like, you know, materials and supplies and stuff like that. That yes, you know, I've gone down there and grabbed and brought here when I've had to do things. I even brought my whiteboard down for a while when I was working on some stuff so I could sketch stuff out. So yes, it's primarily at my office, which of course the plan is to be able to get back to the office, you know, all things considered.
Okay. So you do plan to get back into the main office at some point this year, and
Yes.
we'll need that $520 in that bucket for main office supplies.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. Thank you. Does anybody else have seeing anything with this budget?
If you could, James, just kind of explain the difference between the materials and supplies and office supplies, because they're both at 520.
Yeah. So, and that's one I had to ask about too. So normally what they're trying to break out the difference is office supplies, furniture is more of durable things, whereas materials and supplies are more consumable.
Okay.
So envelopes, paper, all that type of stuff, and then the more durable items under office supplies, furniture. Yeah.
Before we move on, can you remind me what we had that $4,000 line item for? I recall it was for updating the website. But I know there was a lot of discussion around it. So what if you had like one thing that we could move the budget around to get accomplished that would make your life easier, maybe make the Toxics Board program more visible? Is there something from that you know you think would be useful for us to ask for, or?
As of this juncture right now, I don't have something. And it's mainly because we haven't met in a year. So, you know, it's one of those things that if we had some outstanding projects that we were planning on doing, like I'd have recommendations. Right now, it's getting our feet back underneath us, and being a little bit more functional than we have been. So, uh, and being in the difficult year we've had, and that it's lingering on, I don't necessarily see something like that at the moment. I wish I did.
Yeah, James, I remember that we were talking about maybe a couple years ago now, having some kind of a interactive, like a GIS map where people could see, various sites, and it sounded like we were, maybe having some productive discussions about, it being a benefit for both sides of the aisle in the group for just raising transparency and letting people, I don't know, I'm not sure if that fits into the sort of category that Nicole was mentioning, but I was just thinking about that sounded like a cool project, down the road, and
Exactly.
maybe like a kind of concrete project for a, tech savvy at-risk youth to be exploited in the worst types of ways. So, yeah.
So no, and that is something that we've talked about, and we were discussing wanting to do. The challenge is right now we don't have, with the pause of this last year, I don't have more information on that to like what would the budget look like for something like that to develop it. So it really would just be putting a random number.
Yeah. Can we, it sounds like, okay, we can make recommendations while approving the budget, correct? Because it sounds like, I mean, I really like the idea that Evan brought up about in the maybe next year creating an internship. Maybe what we could do is maybe make suggestions for how you spend your time in terms of like maybe we add a line item that includes setting up or recruiting for maybe next year. And then also suggest that next year, that line item from last year that didn't get done for the GIS mapping and improvements to the site gets done next year. Can we do that?
Yeah, and that's separate from this conversation. So, but that's something, yes, that we, is some of the stuff that we need to talk about is what are our goals for the year, and what are some of those projects that we want to focus on and do. So that's something we can definitely do. But as far as for the budget is concerned, that's a separate conversation. So are there any other questions about these numbers specifically?
I don't know that.
Okay, then let's pull up. Oh,
I think Evan had a question.
Maybe this is slightly tangential, but it looks like the thing that we're talking about around staffing between 90%, 95, and 100 is about like less than $5,000 in staffing. Is that correct? It looks like that's the main difference on the top line.
No, it would, for if you look at from the 90% to the 100%, it's like 12,000.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. But from one jump from 90 to 95, it's like 5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, like 6. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And so let's see here. So one of the things to look at with these numbers, okay, is down at the very bottom line of this chart is what it would take with what the FTE that was reported for last year, of what it would be, the amount would be per FTE up to the $2,000 maximum. Last year, our FTE amount dropped and we were down at 5613. This year, at the same staffing level, due to the FTE drop and the losing of a couple businesses, it would increase to 6280 per FTE. So it had a significant jump due to those changes. I guess also there are a few businesses that have gone into the inactive list also because they dropped below 10 FTE on some of those businesses that were smaller, which that has actually a pretty significant effect because at 10 FTE, if you think about that, that was $560 they had to pay into the program last year, and then it drops to 0. So that that is the calculation as it came out for the 90% staffing was 6280 per FTE up to the 2000 maximum. If staffing was increased to 95%, it's 7060, and at 100% is 8050. And of course, then reducing staffing reduces those numbers. 85% at 5590 and 80% at 4950. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Any question on that? Okay. Then, so that is the basic kind of budget information I have and fee information I have. I did include a program fee history to everybody, so you could see that in the past what those fees looked like. And last year, again, we had a significant drop. The previous 3 years, 2017, 18, and 19, were all up in the 60s. And prior to that, it had dropped down also. So we've seen, it fluctuates due to several factors. And we're always trying to find more businesses that help offset that. And hopefully, as the economy recovers, we'll see some of that shift too, because FTE will increase for some of the businesses. The other document we have here is last year's work plan. So I included last year's work plan so everybody could see what we did last year. I would say at this point, I would recommend no major changes to the work plan, because how the work plan works is it's general categories, not specific day-to-day tasks. So it gives us room to fulfill the different requests of the businesses and the board, and has ample room for specific projects like we've talked about, of mapping and things like that.
Just a quick question, James.
Yes.
Based on you were mentioning that your other work in this with the city, your time is split a little bit. Is there a preference for you as far as the level of staffing, in terms of, you understand the program? Is there I don't know if you have any directions that you could suggest to the board about staffing level?
I mean, I would recommend keeping it where it is at the 90%.
Okay.
I don't think increasing it necessarily. I think the fire marshal want to keep that 10%. I don't. With looking at special projects, I don't think reducing to a lower percentage makes sense either. So I would say keeping it at the 90% makes the most sense.
And that's something that you could still feel like you could have some kind of a project for an internship. You could create a project within some of the line items that are existing, and then
exactly. And
creating.
One thing we could do in the work plan that my experience was back with when I was in the risk department with the city is that in our work plan over there was different than how this program does it. And I think it's just because it's different nature of work. But one of the things we did over there is we actually put in, here's what we're proposing as projects for this year, and here's the projects that we completed last year. So it was kind of saying our plans and our successes. Our work plan doesn't articulate that. We don't really talk about it. We talk about more of, this is how we're complying with the charter. If we wanted to put in a section that we talk about, here's some anticipated projects we want to complete this year, we could do that. And that also then puts it in there saying right up front, this is something we're planning on working on. And then the next work plan, we kind of, or the annual report, we say, this is how we did on that.
I think that's a good idea.
Is that something everybody would like to see? Okay. then the question to you, what projects do we want to put on there for this coming year? So starting in July, which technically we can start earlier, but what do we want in there for this next year?
So in prior years, just to back up, we had done some kind of a streamlining of the data entry process for industry. I think using something like $5,000 to build some kind of a like an Excel upload system or something, and that seemed like something that was done, even though I don't understand the specifics of it. And so I'm just wondering, like, yeah. So I think for me, I would like to see, some like an internship designed, and then I think some of us have connections with universities, so we could do some of the outreach for that, and harass people on listservs to try to get people. And so yeah, I think that would be one of the line items. But other than that, I don't know.
Okay.
I agree. It should be a paid internship too. But you can kind of work around like hours and stuff like that in terms of budget.
Yeah. So I will, I'll have to start doing some research on that, to build something like that. But I can definitely put that on for the project, one of the projects for the year, of develop an internship plan, and then I can be reporting to you and saying how close we are to be able to implement it. If we can even implement it some during the year, awesome. But start doing the research, and because I know that I'll have to get certain approvals within the city, and go through all that to make sure that we do it in the way that is appropriate. And then we've mentioned the mapping project.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe if what we can do is resume discussions about the best practices for how we can update the website and make it more approachable for the general public. Then,
yeah.
put those plans, maybe refine those plans for putting them into practice when it's feasible.
Okay, I'm going to add that to future items for meetings. Any other, so for this coming year, for kind of projects for the program to start on, would you like the internship, the develop an internship for the program, and the mapping for the website? Are those two things you would like me to add?
I mean, I think they should be added in terms of like working on them, but whether or not you need to get them done this year, I think that's, at least from my perspective, like,
I always view it as it's the goal to try to get something done. Everything is fluid, so I'll keep you updated on that, and if we can complete it in the year, we can, and we can always report back on it.
Make progress.
Yeah, made progress. Yeah. So, okay, great. I will add those. Anything else we want to add, or do we want to keep it to just those two for this year?
I don't know, just I guess being the classic teacher, trying to turn it back on you, James. Do you have any things that have come up for you as far as things that you'd like to see the program move towards, that are that might fit into this that list?
The only other thing I would say, and I don't know if it really fits on the list, but is to try to integrate into the overall fire system, to try to bring that synergy into it, and that's already on my agenda, like I mentioned earlier, and that's partially because then I'm working closer with hazmat, and so it just helps. We're all more on the same page, it will help that coordination. I have access to their information, but the more that we're working in tandem with it, and they can see mine and I can see theirs, will just improve our coordination. So, if anything, it would be to start trying to integrate the systems together. So I'm going to throw that together.
Yeah. What I remember we were talking about maybe closing some gaps in terms of sharing of information across the different reporting agencies and stuff like that. And I also wanted to ask Dawn, because I know Dawn's the only one here that actually interfaces with the actual process of reporting, if Dawn had any specific thoughts about how it went and all that.
There's a couple, actually 3 different reports I have to do every year. One of them is the fire marshal report, which is separate from what this board is involved in. And basically what it covers is anything over the magic number of 500 cubic feet, 500 pounds, 500 gallons, etc. of whatever toxic chemicals you have at your facility. And based on, it basically comes to about maybe a quarter of the actual chemicals that are report under the toxic inventory report. And if for some, they're really concentrated, the fire marshal report is really concentrated on a volume of chemical and where it's located at your facility, where the toxic inventory report is more anything you have over, if it's extremely toxic, 2.2 pounds or 2,000 pounds or 200 pounds. It's quite a bit different. And if we could somehow combine those two, so as one, it's less reporting. The fire marshal system is extremely good. It's very well laid out, very organized, and where the other system, toxic inventory reporting, is, especially if you're new to it, it's very confusing. Mm-hmm. And it took, well, basically 1 year of reporting to get up to speed on it and find out what had been done wrong in the past, trying to make everything as accurate as possible. And it's another burden having 2 different things for the same reason. And if there was something that could be done for that, the other reports from the EPA, and it's really specific. I only report on one thing for them. They're only concerned with one thing. And so that's really not an issue. But if you look at the data that's on each of these reports, they're all the same. Except with the toxic inventory report, there's just a lot more chemicals that are reported on.
And I can speak a little bit to that, Dawn. And the challenge is because how the program was created in the charter, we don't have a whole lot of room. And it is technically looking at 2 different things. That for hazmat, it's looking at safety primarily for emergency purposes. Of if there's a disaster or a fire, they want to know what they're getting into. Whereas Toxics Right to Know is about what could potentially be, what is being used around the public at large. So it's totally different purposes. And the tracking is completely different. And so I've had discussions with the fire marshal and assistant fire marshal, and there's not a lot that can be done program wise to change the reporting, other than exploring are there tools we can develop to make it easier for businesses. And that's something I'm still pondering. Because yes, I now have gotten to walk people through their first times reporting, and they're looking at this, deer in the headlights, because they're like, this looks like so much nuanced information. How do I know all this, especially when I haven't been tracking it for the last year? So it's a challenge.
Do we want to approve the budget? Okay. Does that sound good? I move to approve the budget.
Which budget are you moving to approve?
Sorry. I move to approve the budget for fiscal year 2022, 21.
At
22.
at
2022.
At 90%
90.
FTE. Sorry.
Okay, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We need a uniform hand gesture.
Yeah.
So that was all four agreed. Okay,
Yes.
great. Then I will get that done. The work plan. Does the work plan? I guess you can vote on if it's approved. Let's see. Can we vote on approval with proposed changes?
We always spend a lot of time. Oh, sorry. I think I broke up.
Yeah. Okay. There you.
Sorry, I interrupted you too. So sorry. Just resume.
Oh no, I was just going to say that obviously there needs to be some changes, as we've talked about, adding in some projects in project section into it. So how would people like to proceed with that? Would you like me to draft something up and we try to get another meeting so you can vote on it? Yeah, how would people like to proceed with that?
What are your timelines, James? Would it be better for us to try to approve something now, or better to come back to it?
I mean, for my anxiety level, approving as fast as possible is better. But I can get at this point on, since you guys have approved the budget, I can get on the calendar with the city council. So if we can get another, even if it's just a short meeting to approve the final work plan, then that would work for me.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
How about everyone else?
Yeah, that sounds great. Do we want to go ahead and get that kind of a meeting on the calendar now?
I would love that. It would make it easier than, because we're all here live.
Let's do it. I got my Google Calendar right in front of me.
I'm pulling mine up here.
And in the meantime, we can sit with the work plan and come up with some ideas for changes or adjustments.
Exactly.
Cool.
Sorry, I'm on two computers here. Okay. Are people available next week?
Yeah. What times?
Well, I mean, one option would be can people do an 11 o'clock next week again? And we can just do a short meeting.
Oh, good.
Evan, Crystal, Nicole, how about you? Yeah? Don, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, so let's do 11 o'clock on, what is that? 11 o'clock on the 4th. Oh my gosh, it's March. So 11 o'clock on the 4th, we will meet for a brief meeting to address the work plan, and we can have that taken care of. I will get myself on the city council's agenda so we can get this approved. Hey, look how fast we are. So is there anything else people want to discuss in terms of the budget work plan fees?
I think in terms of like making sure that the meeting next time like is quick, maybe think about how you might move things around to incorporate some time for those items that we talked about.
And if anybody has any recommendations, if if you can get those to me by Tuesday, just email any recommendations you have to changes or any recommendations in general. Send those over to me as soon as possible. But by Tuesday, that way I have Wednesday to be able to put things together and get things back out to you guys. So for our meeting. And shall we chat about board recruitment?
Yes.
Sound good? Okay. So the city council, basically what happened what happened this year was the applications came in technically after the deadline, and then COVID hit, and the city council didn't address the board, not understanding that they really couldn't push it off. So finally, we had to put a little bit of encouragement and pressure to get it on the agenda, because they didn't realize that we are under mandate. We're supposed to fill things within 2 months, um, as to the best of our abilities. So finally, this last last month, we were able to get Crystal reappointed, because they said she's already been on the board, so yes, it makes sense having her do another term. So where the concern is from the council is the thing that we all know quite well: it is very hard to get applicants for the toxic sport. For right to know advocates, it's definitely easier. I think there's more interest in it. But then there's 2 other roles. There's the neutral, and there is the business advocates. We had 1 applicant for business, and they want to try to, since we're already in the recruitment cycle, try to see if we can shake any more loose to increase the recruitment, because also we're going to need, right now, we have 2 open seats. And Dawn, you're going to be done in June. So technically we have 3 seats to fill. And you guys have to recommend a neutral role, somebody who is agreed on by a vote of at least 4 of you. So,
And not to make your head explode, but I'll be leaving soon. But I did find a replacement. Somebody from my lab is interested, and
that's awesome.
she's lovely. You'll like her.
That is great. So if she can fill out the application as soon as possible, that would be good, because they want the council doesn't like, how do I put it? They set up a schedule for bringing in people to interview them, all that stuff. So if we can get these people in this main recruitment cycle, that makes the council happy, and that also expedites the process. So, and I think, Evan, are you up this year?
Sorry. I do not know the answer to that. Maybe I am. I think you're right. I think I am. It should, and I'm not clear on the rules around serving consecutive appointments. Do we have limitations for?
You can have 2 terms. So let's see here. I just brought things up. You are in your 2nd term, and you finish up this year. Nicole, technically yours doesn't end till 2022, but are you saying that you have to end early?
I don't know, because so depending on the COVID situation, I'm working remote now, but in June, I may be moving to Georgia.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So doing remote would be a possibility, or not so much?
I could do it remote, but I don't know what the rules would be about. I mean, if I'm no longer an Oregon State resident, I still own property here, but
I can look up. some of that. They may be able to say that you can continue, because I know when Evan went to Alaska, they allowed that. So, being that it's finishing out your term, they may allow you to finish out your term remote. But I'll have to
Yeah,
ask.
I'm happy to serve. So
I'm going to make a note.
And James, I guess if the question of me not being able to serve a third term comes up, then if Nicole's friend or lab a colleague is able to fill my spot, I guess that's one possibility.
Yeah, because by the rules, you can only serve 2 consecutive terms, then you have to take a break.
Okay.
So technically you can't serve a third term. So the person that you have, Nicole, if they would apply, that would be fantastic, because that would be another person. Does anybody know anybody that would be a potential for a neutral role?
And I wonder if we can reach out to the former neutral position, folks, and Andre, or I can't remember the other prior to Andre, to see if they might know somebody. I guess because it's a neutral role. I guess are we looking from just past board members that have served in either position, or I'm trying to understand, like, how is this person selected to try to balance, these interests? It's a complicated question. I don't know if there's a way to do it, but.
And I don't have a lot of information.
Yeah.
Because all the charter says is it's somebody to be voted in by, that has to be approved by at least 4 board members. So they're the neutral. So ultimately it's saying it's somebody that is okay for both industry and for right to know advocates. That's all the information I have. So it really can be anyone, as long as you all agree. So it could have been somebody from industry. It could have been somebody that was right to know. It really doesn't matter. The idea is that to get that agreement so that all sides feel like, okay, this is somebody that maybe is more middle of the road, I guess. I mean, you guys work together so well. It's like, I mean, I think it was a safeguard to make sure that there was a tiebreaker.
And I wonder if there's any rules around, people in city government or other government holding this position, because it seems like it could be, but not necessarily, a conflict of interest to have somebody who's works in industry that's reporting to the toxics board, and to have a neutral position would be seemingly challenge. But then I'm just trying to think if there are people within city government that by default are sort of expected to have some neutrality as serving the public good across the non partisan spectrum. And I'm just wondering, like, if there's people within the fire marshal's office, or in I don't know, other types of city government that I don't know, or would just open it up for recruitment and see if how folks feel about that individual.
And probably I don't have a direct answer, but I can put out some feelers and see what I can find out.
Yeah, I recall before the pandemic hit, there were a couple of applicants that we were looking at. Are they gone now, or?
So I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to reach out to them or not. This is an area where everything's a little fuzzy to me, just because it's not my experience. And so I'll ask the city manager's office, but I know we had one person that was from industry. and we had Crystal, and we had one other person that did not have any experience in any of it and lived in Coburg. So I don't know if they were even eligible to be in it at all.
I
And I didn't.
recall, yeah, I recall there was at least one person that looked like they would be a good fit, but yeah, there were some kind of
Yeah,
odd
I'll
ones.
have to go back and look. But so I guess, I mean, the biggest thing is put feelers out. If you know anybody in a business that might be reporting, talk to them.
Now, there's one that I had recommended that you have.
Yeah,
Would she have to, for industry, would she have to put in another
I'll find out.
application?
I'll find out if they'll allow the same application.
Because I talk to her all the time.
Okay.
And basically, I'm setting her up to be my relief when I retire. But I know she's very interested in it.
Okay.
She's pretty sharp.
And so I'll talk to I'll find out if she can just use the same application. That way she doesn't have to do it again since she's already in the process. But if there's anybody that anybody knows that you want to eat for any position, because again, we're going to have the council would prefer that we have multiple applicants for every role. So just having one, Nicole's referral is great, but they really want more than just one. So if you know somebody, please refer them over to do this, because we need the applicants. We need, it also relieves stress on you guys, because if there's a conflict and you're like, I can't make a meeting right now, that means we can't have a meeting. So, yes, Crystal.
Can you drop the link in the chat for where folks can go to apply?
I will email it
I
out.
have that link. Okay. I'll look for that link and send it out to some folks that I know and see if we get anybody.
Okay. So, and one thing that I actually joined in, I mentioned to Dawn and Crystal last time, but Evan and Nicole, you weren't with us, that I've actually been part of a meeting of kind of stakeholders for dealing with J.H. Baxter with the current situation that they have going on. So I'm actually starting to build some connections with some people over DEQ, LaRappa. I finally got to meet Lisa Arkin over there with Beyond Toxic. So it's a pretty broad group. So it's allowing me to start having some connection with some of these other groups that I normally don't have, which hopefully might even bring up some things there. We have a meeting coming up next week, so I'm probably going to actually mention that we are actively recruiting for the board and see if anybody is interested in that group too, because that would even potentially, I mean, even if there's somebody over in that that's in LaRappa or DEQ that might even be interested in something like this. So I'll bring that up over there also.
And James, do you have a list perhaps, or do we have a list of the prior neutral roles, just to send out another announcement to them, just so that in case they want to serve, it wouldn't violate the consecutive term limit?
I'll look that up and I'll send them a message if I have their contact information. Going back, it gets a little bit spotty, especially because if you think about it, that was over 6 years ago, because Andre did 2 terms. So I will look that up, and I will, if I have contact information, I will reach out to previous neutral positions to see if anybody's interested.
So this issue of not having somebody could cripple the board if we lose one person at this point, which would be me in when is the end, in June or July?
The new year starts July 1.
Okay. So I'll be gone then. So we're trying to get, yep.
Yeah. So we actively need to recruit heavily. I'll reach out to businesses again, and see if I can shake something loose. I'm afraid that because of what this year's been, that they're going to be even more loath to turn somebody loose for a meeting once a month, even though it's only a meeting once a month. So,
Jay, one of the things we talked about just before the meeting is looking at, as far as industry goes, it's been a hard position to fill. I mean, we were short one last year, and now we're short two. I'm retiring at the end of June. Well, from the board. But what about other businesses that are not required to report? Having them have a voice on this board, since they have to essentially follow all the same rules. But they just don't have, I mean, they have less than 10 people, or they don't have to pay the full-time employee fees.
so how the charter is currently written is that for business advocates or representatives, they are only representatives of those that report. And that's how it's written. And when the amendment to the program happened around the fees, they expanded that to businesses that didn't reach the reporting threshold, but they had over 10 FTE, and still used hazardous substances. So currently, only reporting businesses can have a representative. If, and I believe it would take a charter amendment, if an amendment happened that opened that up to all businesses that have to be compliant with the program. So things like businesses that just have to pay a fee, that would dramatically increase our potential board base.
I mean, just to be honest with you, all you guys are current members on the board that are not in the industry, which is the rest of you. To be honest with you, there are people that do the reporting, and it's because they're forced to do it, because they have to do it. The person that does it doesn't really want to do it, and he doesn't want to do, or they don't want to do any additional things like become a member of the board. And I mean, it's prevalent because you just don't see. I mean, last year we sent out all those feelers to all the businesses and the business managers of these different companies that have to report, and zero response. And so that kind of gives you an idea where industry is sitting as far as this board goes. And if we have the ability to allow those other people from industry to apply, even if it requires a charter amendment, I think we're going to be sitting a lot better as far as having a full board to be able to do this job the right way.
I wondered on, like, because it sounds like, as you said, there's a small voting, or there's a small pool of people that can currently serve in that capacity. And then if we were to open it up to all reporting businesses, irrespective of the thresholds, I guess one question I would have would be, would that potentially generate tension between businesses at different, FTE levels, or at different sizes? Is there a cohesive, I mean, because, communities are oftentimes not necessarily cohesive. I don't know if there's unexpected things that could happen with that.
I mean, there's always a possibility for something like that to happen, but when you look at where I sit from, I mean, we have 60 employees, so we're at that $2,000 threshold every year. And plus I have a lot of chemicals that I have to report on that are above the threshold. But those that are not above that chemical threshold, I don't really see any type of conflict between them, because we're not in competition with each other. They really don't. I don't think that they have any angst against those that do the reporting, just because we have more chemicals or whatever. But it's just, they don't have a voice. is basically the issue that I'm trying to address, and plus be able to get more industry advocates available to get a full board membership. I mean, it's obviously, you know, just looking at you three here, I mean, you are easily represented. I mean, there's a lot of environmental advocacy out there, and just, well, one, it's Oregon, and two, there's a lot of, I mean, that's the way that things are going. We're trying to take care of the environment now, and I just think we would stand better chances of having a full board if we did do a charter change and do that. Allow them to have their voice, which they don't have.
Would the board be interested in me contacting the appropriate party and saying, how would we recommend something like this? Because I don't even know what the process looks like. I know that there'll be specific things that they'll want to happen for a recommendation like that to happen to the council.
Well, it sounds like there are a number of changes to the charter that we would love to make. Could you make a broad request? Oh, I died. Sorry. Did you hear what I said at all?
Could we make a broad request?
Yeah.
What we would probably have to do is make several specific requests. So if it was something like, we would like to see an amendment with this language around, here's the different sections of the amendment that we would like to see, and allows the council to say yes, no, yeah, things like that, to be able to kind of pull it apart, because also they'll want specific language, because it'll have to be very legalese of what's changing. And it's a relatively intense process, but I kind of primed the council saying there's potentially some options, but it could involve a charter change, and they were actually kind of amenable to it. So
yeah, as far as the industry advocates go, I mean, there's a lot of people that they have to pay their fees, but they don't report, and so really they're members of this process that don't have a voice, and I think that would be a good aspect. I mean, the only thing is they're not at the chemical thresholds for reporting, but they still pay their fees, and I think that would be a good change to the charter that would really help improve the number of people on the board. And like I said, I don't think really there would be any conflict. I can't see it, at least right now.
So at this point, it sounds like there may be multiple amendments that might want to be proposed by the board. What if? How does this sound? That we can we don't have to pass this right now, but I need to do some research with the city manager's office and possibly the city attorney to find out what the process looks like, what we would need to do to propose this, and also get recommendations of what's the best way to, make it easy for the council to hopefully go thumbs up. So would people be willing to ponder are there any other amendments that you would like to see that as far as major changes to the program, things that have been discussed before, or things like, should we expand the businesses that should be covered in the program beyond the, SIC code 2000 through 3999? Should there be any other industries that should be a part of this? Should, things like that, should we expand the amount of applicant pool for the board up to, including non-reporting businesses? If there's any other things that you think of, if you want to jot those down, and so that way the next time we meet, we can bring those up, and then hopefully by I will try to get some information by next week. If I I just thought about something. I don't know if we can meet next week. I am supposed. We're Thursday. I have to notify the city manager's office by Wednesday for the next week. We are now Thursday. So can we push out our next meeting one more week for the work plan? I am really sorry. I just realized that. Can everybody do the 11th rather than the 4th? Crystal's
I
okay.
can.
Dawn's okay. Evan's okay. And Nicole's okay. Okay. So we'll do 11 on the 11th. And I will send out reminders. So you have an extra week to get me edits for the work plan.
And James, I don't want to derail us. I'm just thinking, and I know this might be overly complicated for the, in the scope of what we're talking about, but I've always felt like, progressive fee schedules, and that was wrapped up in the like litigation that the program has dealt with in the past. But I've always felt like, larger businesses can afford to pay more, smaller businesses, not so much. And I know that, that was tied up in, layers of complicated professional managerial class bickering. So I don't know if we can touch that, but
I so wish we could, but our hands are tied because it was handed down by a court. There is nothing we can do without, I think, the state legislature getting involved. So we are trapped at the $2,000 max. And because they did not allow for any adjustments over the years, we have no power. And I don't think it's right either.
Well, one of the things as far as business goes, everybody is generating their own fees now. El Rapa basically tripled their fees. There's other permit fees that we have to pay. I mean, there are a lot, and knowing that this is capped at 2,000 is very helpful for business.
It is interesting that as I've talked to some, especially some of the newer businesses, they were actually surprised because this program, the fee is actually comparably higher than other programs. So things like the hazmat fee normally is lower for people than what this program is. And that's just because of its restrictive nature. So one of the biggest things that restricts us is that we have this very small cross section of businesses that we actually have any contact with. It is a pretty small restrictive nature of manufacturing. And so that definitely causes a challenge there because there's only so many of those businesses in the area.
And James, I know that this might be also tangential, but I know it within I think this summer, June or July, the city or maybe at the state level, there's going to be changes to zoning around the so-called middle housing, whatever that is interpreted to mean. And I'm just wondering, like, if there's opportunities to update or expand the scope of the of our net for reporting businesses, because it seems like the way that it's drawn is it doesn't have the same kind of standardization as like an urban growth boundary. And then there's like exceptions for not including, the hospital or the university or other, I don't know if there's other entities. I'm just wondering if there's the opportunity to update the map to go along with the changes that are going on with zoning and with, fence line communities. There's going to be more density around industrial sites as a result of of this infill that's going to be happening, and so that's going to mean increased exposure and maybe the need for increased transparency. And so I'm wondering if we can change the map to be more inclusive, to to meet the sort of vision of the charter of trying to allow people to have information, particularly when there's proximity issues.
Yeah, and that's something we discussed is looking more at the map, the online map resource, and so we'll look at that this year. So I guess think about any major program changes that anybody may want to see, or if there's any. I mean, my thing is dream big. If there's something you would like to see with this program, bring it up, and we can talk about it. We can see if there's something we can do, especially if we're looking at making like some big recommendations to the council. This is kind of the time to dream big, because you don't get a lot of shots where the council's like, hey, let's adjust the charter. That's something they don't like to do, because those are big changes. So this is our chance, I guess. So dream big. Any other questions about recruitment?
I guess I don't know if this is something that's in the charter, but just to keep a functioning board going, I wonder if there's any need for a clause to say that, if no suitable applicants are, available, then term limits are like temporarily suspended until.
That's a good idea.
I mean, again, I'm sort of split on term limits. I'm completely reactionary when it's somebody that I don't like, and then completely for it when it's me. So. But so I don't know if we could just do something in terms of functionality of the board.
That's a good question. I mean, that is something to propose. Of is there room to be able to adjust something, so allowing an extension or something like that. So that's all I have at the moment. Unless there's anything else at this juncture, we're going to meet together on the 11th at 11. I'll probably schedule it for a longer than a short meeting, more like what we're doing right now. Wow, we're actually coming right up on time. So like an hour and a half again, and we can discuss more of. I should hopefully have some information on amendment stuff, because that's going to be a big question, and also some information on recruitment.
So does anybody have anything else? No? All right, then the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, see you guys
Thank
next
you.
couple weeks.